It's another episode of NRG Insights, where I speak to people across the mortgage industry, whether that be lending, broking, or everything in between. Just useful people to know, influential people in the industry, and people who I always think can really kind of add value to other people's careers. So today I've got Dave and Adam from Helix Financial. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Now, we have never had a serious conversation before. I mean, obviously we talk about recruitment, but we've never had a serious conversation.
Hopefully this will be a first.
Yeah. So let's see how long we can keep it being on point. So let's start with, talk to me, a couple of reasons actually. I want to get this out to people who are listening. I think this is really useful because you're both very good at what you do. You both come from different sectors of the market and decided to join, but you've both been in it a long time, but the business is relatively new. So I think some of the stuff you'll say will really resonate with guys who are perhaps looking to jump ship and set up your own business and that kind of thing. So I really wanted to pick your brains on that side. But let's start with tell me about your journey to how you got to Helix.
Age before beauty. So I suppose probably going back a bit in time now, but Ads and I we were working together about sort of 17 years ago. So it was a company called Liquid Financial at the time. So we left that sort of height of the crisis. We went our separate ways. So I went and started work at City Mortgage Solutions. Ads went to Keystone.
Yeah.
And then we're still friends, so we kept in touch, and we always, especially I suppose in the last sort of 5 years before we set up Helix, always were discussing about sort of setting up a new business. And I think for us it was more the fact that we do such different things in the industry. So Ads is very much a focus on the quirkier side of things, so your bridge and your development commercial. And for me, it was I've always been on the regulated side of things. So that was sort of a difference, which we thought, yes, there are obviously a lot of companies which do bridging, development commercial, and do the regulated. But we thought, look, to really make it work, it's best to almost split this as sort of two separate companies. So we almost sort of spearhead each one, and then sort of bring our own sort of unique skills along to it.
Nice. And Dave, although Adam has answered most of yours for you, do you want to chip in?
Yeah, I haven't really got anything else to add to that, apart from, as DT said, having started personally 2007, just before the great financial crash, we've been through a lot since then. A lot of economic uncertainty and historic events. We've just kind of stuck with it. We've always been self-employed, but under different banners, so to speak, and different companies. But in 2021, we set up Helix, which was ours, so we could be the captain of our own ship.
So what was the catalyst for that then? Because obviously you've known each other for years. You could have done it at any point. Why 2021? Let's do it now. What was the reason for starting?
Well, I think it just felt right at that sort of time, really. I think both of us were in a situation where, in our existing setup, I left City and still keep in touch with the guys there. We're actually an AR of their firm now, so there was no ill intention of us leaving. It just felt like it was the right time to go. I think it's like we had some ideas of what we were going to do with the business. I think, look, at City there wasn't much of a focus on the bridge and development commercial side of things. I'd done odd bits of bridging before, but didn't know as much about it as obviously as Ad did. So it just felt naturally the right time sort of to push on and do it, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you think that's important? Do you think that's an important part when people are looking at, well, number one, looking at business partners and also timing? I don't think there's ever a perfect time to start a business. But any advice you can give to people on when that is? Because you did wait quite a long time, didn't you? Consider, 17 to you knew each other for 13, 14 years before that. Is that right? And then
so we met at Liquid Financial Management in 2007.
Did you?
So we've been colleagues before friends.
Did you know that you were going to be business partners for years before you became business partners, or was it like a?
I hope not. Well, to be fair, I remember when we were working together, we did flirt with the idea at some point in the future we'd probably end up working back together again. How it's ended up, mate, I think we always knew we'd certainly always be friends. You were an usher at my wedding. I wasn't one at yours.
So you're not bitter about it?
So, not that I harbour any grudges. I think look, COVID pushed things back, but we both had a little one at this around sort of similar time. So probably yeah, maybe 3 or 4 years would have probably been the sort of the ideal time. But I actually in some way think it's probably good because obviously being self-employed in this industry anyway is I think that's a hard bit in itself because
Mm.
you've got loads of different things you have to learn. You have to learn about doing your own sort of accounting. The first part as well when you're setting out to actually get your lead sources into the business itself. So I think we felt that we're at that point where actually now let's how do we move on? What is the next step in our career? And so yeah, we could have both carried on at our sort of our firms, but yeah, I don't know. It just as I said, I keep saying it just felt like the right time to do it.
Also, you can after that amount of time feel a little bit stagnant and it's all a bit the same. And
Yeah.
I think we just wanted a new challenge, especially as you say, like at that point in our lives where we just started having children. And a catalyst for me was being able to kind of market and a lot of. I think with some networks, there's a lot more control over what an advisor can or can't say. You almost well, I need to be careful what I say here, but you are treated a little bit like a child sometimes, where you
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
ask permission for things where, at the end of the day, you are a regulated individual. You're heavily, you do a lot of exams, and sometimes you don't get the latitude that you should do as a grown up.
That was really interesting about that, and I
That
think
was a big catalyst for me.
I honestly think that some of those old networks, the problem is that they were before social media, right? They were before marketing, before we actually marketed ourselves. So they've got this archaic way of doing things where you've got to get things signed off, and
Yeah,
there's a
and it can
heavy
take
focus.
weeks.
Yeah, it was not
You could have a base rate decision, and you take 2 weeks to get permission
gone.
to put anything on social media, which is just mad, especially as you say in this day and age of social media where you are trying to get clients to social media and say things and to ask permission all the time. I do get it. It's at the end of the day, it's someone else's PI, and
I
that
do,
needs to
but at the
be
same time, like you say, they've trusted you as an individual to represent their business as a
yeah.
network. And that also means they've got to trust you when it comes to um, putting your own marketing out there. Like you can still get picked up on your social media for saying the wrong thing, right? But that's on you. And I think most of us are pretty savvy when it comes to just not being a dick when about the regulation. But it is funny because I see some of these guys. I mean, I won't name them, but there's some dinosaur networks out there who will just hold everything back, and they're so nervous about what you post. But social media is
Yeah,
reactive, right? Marketing nowadays is reactive. It's guerrilla. You can't just, um,
a
you know,
100%.
out a leaflet.
Yeah,
I think the thing is, obviously, when we first started as well, that the industry was a completely different thing. I think it was very much like the Wild West, pretty much when I started as well. So I think as an industry, we've come on so much. Like I'd say, knowledge of a broker now is so much more farther advanced than what it was when I first started. You had the likes of the self-cert and the fast tracks where you didn't need much knowledge to be able to put a deal through those. There was lenders that would accept it through a few clicks of the button. So
well,
yeah.
there were a lot of lenders that you just needed a pulse and they'd lend you money. That wasn't really brokering. It was, you were just. I mean, back then you'd obviously fax documents and handwrite
Well, a bit of
apps,
slate
and
on it when you first
look how
started.
far we've come since then.
There's still a couple of lenders that do
Yeah.
that.
So let's talk about that actually, because a lot of people will be in a similar boat to you were in 2021 when they're great brokers, they're self-employed, they've done that side of things. But lead sources, right? So you obviously, the main thing when you're setting up a business is how you feed yourself. Um, did you, obviously, I know you've already got clients because you've been in it a long time, but did you have to make a conscious effort as to, right, this is how much we have to generate, this is where our best business comes from? Was it a lot of planning that went into the lead source side of things, or was it just kind of natural?
Yeah, so I think so. What we did when we first started up is it very much we sort of farmed our own clients first. So I think for us it was about being a bit organic with it as well because we hadn't worked together before for a number of years. So that probably was one of the first and biggest challenges we had really, because obviously we've had our existing client bank very much referral basis. We regularly got referrals in, but obviously as you start taking staff members on, the big thing is comes to lead generation. So it's something we've had to think about. I think especially with the whole industry in the last sort of since sort of like July last year. It's massively changed. It's been a sort of difficult market. So yeah, for us, and that's something we're always talking about it. Whenever we sit down, and we're always sort of working out where we can get those lead sources from. And because without leads, you obviously you just don't have clients, do you?
And also, having started the business, we are carrying more overheads than we were as a sole trader,
Yeah.
self-employed broker. And I think the biggest wake-up call for us is the amount of additional hats we have to wear. So, doing the accounts for the business, the recruiting, the marketing, the management, the HR, the onboarding, the FCA stuff. You never had that as a sole trader, self-employed broker,
Not
even
when
though
you're
you're
on your
still
net,
both
mate, do you? Do you know what
self-employed.
I always say to people, if you wanting to set up your own business because you love mortgage broking, just be aware that a big part of your business will not be broking mortgages. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
To be a successful business owner, you have to want to be a successful business owner. I don't think it's
Yeah.
about being a better broker or getting a few more quid, because, like you say, there's so much more involved. I mean, what did it come as a shock to you then when you did it? Were you kind of
Yeah, I think funny enough, actually, especially in the last sort of 12 months, like a lot of things we were doing in the background, you're just putting those foundations in place. So it might be putting an IT support system in place. We sort of changed our accounting system, etc. So these sort of things are the things that people don't see, but obviously they take time to get sort of structured and set up, really. But yeah, I think there was a lot more involved from the start, which I wasn't quite aware of. So yeah, we took a business coach on about a year, just over a year and a bit ago, because even though we've been self-employed for sort of 37 years between us, I think having someone with giving you that structure, so sort of working on everything from where is your business, where's your branding going to be, like what's your mission statement, well, what do you stand for? And I think we knew those sort of things in our head, but we had to obviously get them out on paper
yeah?
and then work out defining roles, like who's doing what in the business, because there's no point you sort of both sort of trying to do everything.
Do you know, I love that as well. I mean, I know when we first spoke, I can't remember when we first spoke, but you were just getting into the coaching side of things, and I'm a massive advocate for coaching. I think we're all pretty good at our job. I can recruit. No one's ever shown me how to run a business. So I think it's a massive game changer. You've done it so early on as well, because I think a lot of people get in, or certainly from my point of view, I got into the coaching side of things years and years later when I realised how much I didn't know. But you'd kind of already come to that conclusion at the beginning. Like, there's shit we don't
Yeah,
know.
it
We
was
need
quite
to.
nice to do early on in our journey, and I was quite skeptical at first, but DT suggested we
I find that
persevere
hard
with
to
it,
believe.
and it's it's been it's been challenging. It's been a lot of fun. It's made us ask a lot of questions of ourselves, but ultimately our mindset's changed massively,
Yeah.
massively.
So what
So yeah,
what advice
we're
what advice
sorry, go
can you
on.
give people? Sorry, mate, I will jump in all the time. Apologies. What advice can you give people in regards to the coaching side of things? Because people have an hour about it, and like you said, like you're very lucky that one of you buys into it, and you kind of push the other one in until you both buy into it. But if you're not really a believer in it yet, what can you recommend to people to think about when they're looking at that side of the business?
I think the first thing they teach is about accountability, really, and so I think it's very easy for us to, especially at the start, if you're wearing lots of different hats, it's very easy to say, okay, look, you do this thing here, you do that thing there, without having that sort of structure behind you. So, I think the first few sessions was just as I said, getting an idea of whose role is it in the business to do this.
It's
So
vision and goal
and
setting.
like
Yeah,
Ad and I are very much yin and yang with what we do. I'm obviously a lot more detailed than Adam is. You should
Why
be
is that
well aware.
obvious?
And so I think it's well, so we knew it was splitting those roles between ourselves and between two of us. He's from the bridging world, so he's from the Wild West. Is there? There's no
yeah,
such
yeah.
thing as
One of
paperwork in
you is
there.
regulated by
So
your
it's,
mum, there. Let's leave it.
Just alienated half of the people. That's brilliant. Well done, DT. To win
Well,
friends and
they
influence
resonate with
people.
you, you see, Adam. So it makes much more sense to alienate them on one side. Actually, let's go for so vision and goal setting with your coaches. Did you both have the same vision at the beginning, or when you start talking about it, do you realise that you're slightly askew? Because I speak to a lot of business owners, and if I speak to them
mm,
separately, it's not exactly aligned. And I think that's part of the coaching thing where it aligns you. Did you come up against that? Was it were you fairly aligned?
Broadly on the same page, weren't we? To be honest.
Hmm.
the only thing I would say, I think, look, before you start up a business, I think I've spoken to a lot of people who said the same. Like, I think you think it's going to be very easy. You're going to go, you have your personality, you'll take on this member of staff, and everything will be rosy. Where it's not. Obviously, you can have your good days and you have your bad days. So I think, look, from the start, we had sort of a goal plan of we would go on this sort of journey like this without any sort of dips in the road. So I think that was quite key, because it's working out when there is problems and issues. how do you do it? How do you work through these things? What can you do? How can you help each other? Because obviously there's sometimes, especially with the fact we've got these two businesses, that one side of the business may be a lot busier than the other. So it's a case of all hands on deck really to get behind it to sort out whatever we need to do.
Yeah, communication's key with any relationship, isn't it?
Yeah.
And running a business is no different.
So as you grow the business, then this is just a kind of a personal one that I think of it because I know you keep calling it two separate businesses, but it's not, right? Helix is a business,
Mm.
isn't it? It's just that you've got two separate sectors, if you like. Um, as the business grows, how do you split the responsibility of the bigger picture stuff? Because you do run it is like you're running two separate businesses, isn't it? But obviously, it's all under one banner, it's all under one financial banner, and that kind of thing. Have you thought further on into what the business looks like when it grows a bit bigger?
Well, if I found out actually on the back of the Atch code, so we've been looking at an organisation chart between now and sort of in 3 years' time. So I think look, it's quite hard to get an exact idea where you want sort of the business to go. But I think the fact is that because Adam's skill set is very much on the bridge and the commercial side of things, I think that is a very hard part of the industry, I think, to learn because most of that is down to sort of contacts that you sort of built up in the year and sort of structuring those deals can very much be the difference between it going through or not. It's not necessarily just about rate. So I think, look, yes, as far as thinking ahead, we've got a plan on as it grows what sort of jobs and roles people to take on. But I think ads is always going to be more key to that side of the business than I will because of his skill set.
But it's also, but we as DT said, we've got very different personalities and skill sets. So, for the financial side of the business would be more DT, whereas I might be more on the sales and marketing side.
Yeah,
And it's just kind of divvying it up that way.
sounds like you've made the decision. Adam's going to be left out on the phone until he's 80, and Dave's going to be managing somewhere abroad, somewhere nice.
A lot of lunches, to be honest.
Yeah, you feel
He'll be
through on
he'll
it.
be in a darkened room, just with a calculator, and I'll be in a pub somewhere. That suits me fine.
Which is basically what commercial brokers do, isn't it? It's not. That's
Yeah,
the crux of the job.
We just don't tell everyone that.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I liken commercial broking to scrumming in rugby. Like it's not that hard, but we
yeah.
don't tell anyone that. We just make out it's really complicated, so no one ever wants to do it.
Well, we made a joke of this because I went to the Bridge and Commercial Awards, didn't we, last year? And I'd never been to the BNC Awards. And I'm used to going to your regulator awards where everyone sits down and you have a nice meal and then everyone claps. It's not like that at all at the BNC Awards. It's literally,
Carnage.
I don't think
It's a
anyone
bit more
sat down
like
at all.
it's a bit livelier.
Yeah,
I do think
slightly.
that's a very specific award, though. That is a very that is very lively. You do get some normal commercial award ceremonies as well.
It's like kicking out time at the pubs at 11 o'clock when you go to the BNC.
So on the commercial side of things, Adam, do you know what's really confused me? Do you know I keep stopping to say your names? Obviously, I know you very well. You sat on the other side now, but obviously it's a mirror image for me. So you're now under Dave, and you're now under Adam. So I keep.
Oh, really?
I know you are
That's
Adam,
why we swapped over, because on our side, I'm under Adam, he's under DT.
but I just. So on the commercial sides, obviously very different from Resi, like David mentioned that it's much more about relationships and building up and that side of things. How did you start there? Because a lot of guys want to join in commercial. I think they're a bit clueless maybe as to you can't just jump straight from Resi to it. It's quite tricky. How did you get into it and how did you build that side of the business?
So I've always done both. So I do Resi and Buy-to-let as well. Obviously, not as much volume as DT, as that's his prime focus. So I suppose I've got a unique insight to all sides of property finance.
Mm.
The firm that I started it at in 2007 always did both as well. So there was some good grounding there. In fact, I was sat opposite Andrew Robinson, who set up Arc and Co.
Yeah.
He was a broker there. And you just listened in on people's phone calls, and he was a great role model to listen to at the time. And obviously look at where he's gone. So
Yeah.
there were some
Yeah, maybe.
just amazing people around to listen to, and really you could ask questions and things like that. But bearing in mind, in 2008, the world basically
Mm.
collapsed financially. There weren't many deals to be done. So I knew at the time that economies are cyclical. If I stick this out, swathes of brokers left the industry. But every time I heard a bank or lender's name come up in the media or online, I would call them up and ask them if they had a real estate apartment department or lending arm, and ask them what they did. And from that, you kind of got to understand some of the quirks of different lenders and build relationships, because there aren't really sourcing systems for bridging development commercial. I know there are ones that, say there are ones that are,
It's having
in
me
their
on because there's one
infancy.
coming on the podcast next week, and they're coming out the week after
I,
you.
I haven't said names,
Yeah,
but it is still in its infancy compared to resi and buy to let, where
yeah.
you type in some numbers, you get a list of lenders, and you go down the list till you find one that
I
fits.
think
That doesn't really
the
exist
commercial
in that
stuff
space.
is 5 times better than it was maybe a year ago, but it's nowhere near what Resi is. It's just that
Yeah,
there's so many
exactly.
variables.
But it's a question of just you've got to be very curious. You've got to keep that curiosity of you hear a new lender's name, talk to them, find out what they do, and the more you talk to, the more relationships you build, and the more you understand how things are done. I know, for instance, the London Institute of Banking and Finance have brought out that qualification. We've actually just put Ross, one of our brokers here, on that course, and he seems to be really enjoying it and
Oh,
learning, because he
useful.
is a regulated broker, but we want him to learn the other side of the business, and
It's,
he's
it's the
he's picking
new.
up a lot more things. We're discussing cases more, and he's coming on leaps and bounds in terms of understanding how it works and how to structure
And
things.
is that new qualification useful? Is it like CMAP was for mortgages, as in not very useful, or is it actually quite? Um, is it decent?
From what I understand, I haven't gone through the modules with a fine tooth comb, but
Detail.
Yeah.
all right, yeah, detail.
Would you be able to
Just
pass it?
what's the qualification? That'll do. No, he's to be fair to Ross, he's very analytical. He's like DT.
Yeah.
He likes the detail, and he's there's a lot of good feedback about that qualification.
Oh, good.
In terms of all those types of unregulated activities, it does seem to go in a lot of detail, which is good, because ultimately we do have capacity for someone like Ross to take on some of the deals that I look after.
I suppose that is the benefit, isn't
You
it?
know,
Of the fact that you've got those two avenues. That when you do start growing, I mean, I envisage you guys having that kind of that training academy type look at one point in the future where you don't have to pick whether you're resi or commercial, right? If you kind of naturally go down
yes.
that route, if you've got it. Obviously, if you are a good mortgage broker, you go into resi like DT, and if you like playing golf, then you move into the other side. Obviously, I'm joking to any commercial brokers listening. I have a great respect. And
He's not joking.
it is very different, and I do appreciate. Out of interest, DT, the same for you. Was it never tempting to sort of push the other side? Because it is like, I don't want to say it, but it's the cooler side of the market, right? The big
Yeah.
stuff, like
Oh, 100%. I think now I think I've been doing this for a bit too long now to sort of just suddenly to make that jump. But yeah, there was sort of times of doing it. I think my early experience with those sort of type of deals is that it comes down to the contacts more than anything, because the contacts, like to structure those deals, that they can be quite complex at times, to
yeah.
be honest. So I think for me it was a case that I think Adam, that was his strong point. He knew that was where he wanted to go, and he went down that route. So yeah, I think, look, for me now, I think we're lucky in the sense that we got best of both worlds, in the sense we've got a home for we can put it to if it's there, or we can put it into the regulated channel. But yeah, I don't think I'm suddenly going to become a commercial broker overnight, to be honest.
And
Wouldn't suit him.
uh,
Thanks, I'll stick to my spreadsheets. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So you mentioned then about Andrew from Ark and Co. Obviously, great broker, great business. And do you think that's made a massive difference to you? I do feel like I'll get into the working from home side of things, but I do feel like people like yourselves got really good at their jobs because you were surrounded by people like that, who went on to create great businesses and can be kind of role models for you. Is that something you can emulate to the next lot of people? Is that part of the kind of the business journey? Do you think that's part of the reason for being good, and then setting up something like this where you can emulate that?
I think we all have our individual and joint goals. I mean, to emulate a business like Ark and Co would be just phenomenal. But ultimately, we've got to carve our own path, and that will almost certainly look different. But to be mentioned in the same sentence as Ark and Co would be
Yeah.
quite something. And as you say, Andrew is a role model. They've just done amazing things, and
Was he like
as I said,
a role model
we
for
will carve our
you?
own path. But
Was he like a role model for
sorry.
you? Was he like a role model for you at the time? Did you think of it like that when you were listening, or was it just a guy that you listened to who was good at selling mortgages?
Yeah, no, he was, yeah, very much so back then because he was doing phenomenal business, and he he's a great guy, nice person. I think we're talking about Robbo quite a lot, aren't we?
Yeah, I know.
Um, but he just knew a lot, and he was always happy to help. And I think with someone like Andrew, he's just yeah, he's always happy to help and
Yeah.
help people grow. I did learn a lot from him.
Do you know what? I think that's a really good trait of top brokers as well. Do you know what I mean? I think they're happy to pass on their wisdom and that side of things. I don't know many, like, no one gets paid to come on here and tell people and give people advice. I think top brokers. By the way, you're not getting paid. Just to caveat that.
I was
Yeah.
don't recall that being mentioned. So
but genuinely, I think that's a trait of successful people, right? Is that they want to pass that on. I think we are going to struggle to do that when if guys like that are sat at home, which Andrew could actually sit at home and sell mortgages, right? Because he doesn't need to pass it on. Same as you guys
No.
could now potentially as a two-man band, sit at home, save your pennies, and do it. But you're trying to grow something there. But I think the importance of having people around you is going to be more so as we move forward. But I think we're stuck with this kind of this working from home model where these youngsters are coming through and they're not getting the privilege of getting to work with people, like you guys, and you guys got to work with someone else. What are your thoughts on it about the working from home and the hybrid? I understand flexibility, and I know you guys offer similar things. But what are your thoughts on how the market is changing in that respect?
Yeah, but as you said, it's massively changed. Like, when we started, there was no such thing as working at home. You were 5 days in the office. You
8 till 6,
yeah,
we were treated like employees as
yeah.
self-employed brokers.
So I think it has massively changed. And I think that I think the world has changed now that having that type of balance. I think for us, it's like we've always said from the start, we want to make it a fun place to come to work. We want that culture in there, to be honest. So I think it's hiring those type of people. And I think if they see you doing that as well, that you're coming sort of 2-3 days a week. And look, we're not going to hold someone down to their desk if they suddenly want to work from home that day. That's fine, as long as you're doing something, especially if you're self-employed, right? Is that
Yeah,
you don't want actually someone in the office from 9 to 5 just sitting on their laptop. You want them out going and finding the business. Like, but what networking events can you go to? Like, where is your lead source going to come from? So I think for us, it's always been about getting that right balance. But yeah, look, things have changed. I think, especially down the whole lead generation side of things, it's when we started, very much a case that you're almost given a yellow pages and sort of just told sort of to get on with it. Where I think now the industry, I mean, there's a lot more support for sort of young brokers sort of coming into the industry.
And at the end of the day, our jobs are very sociable job. So you can't do that working from home, and you need to be out and about seeing people. And you
It's
need, yeah, it's
it's
a
knowledge. Knowledge is the big one. Is that, as you said, that there'll be cases like, well, we every Tuesday morning we sit down and we'll just go through some cases on a desk. Like, let's run through. It'll be who's seen a BDM this week. Is there a particular BDM? What's some USPs on that? And it doesn't need to be a 3-4 hour meeting. It's a 40 minute meeting where we just go through some quick bits. And that in my opinion, those things are so helpful. That's the thing we used to always do. We always had BDMs coming in, and if you're not seeing those BDMs, I think it's quite hard then to know where you're going to place that case that's sort of best for the client.
yeah. It's the chair turning, isn't it? Especially with commercial. I find. I mean, you
Mm.
have got matrix with Resi, haven't you? But it's how the young people are going to learn the commercial job is beyond me from working from home. I think it's too tough to get the chair turning of that's not where that deal goes is
No.
too tricky. It doesn't matter
yeah.
how good the CRM systems get and how good the all the software becomes. That actual chair turning is going to be massive. So on the lead generation side, challenging last year, right? Everyone's had it was a tricky year for everyone. If everyone said they smashed it last year, they're full of shit. I know most people in the industry, so I can't believe that people still say it. But nonetheless, you've always relied on your lead generation abilities, right, to keep going. You've both been self-employed for years. How did that change last year? Did you have to change anything last year in regards to the way you did business, or or is there anything in particular you can advise people on how, when it does get tricky, what you did to keep things moving?
Yeah, I think, look, funnily enough, it's always something. I think lead generation is something you should never really stop on it, to be honest. But I think that recently we've just been working some things. We've changed a bit of an angle where we're going to look for business, but even down to it's keeping in contact with clients. So it's even little thing. I know it's a bit cliche, but the afters, I think it's that Andy Bounce book, isn't it? Where very much you're staying in contact with your client. You're more likely to get a lead if you speak to an existing client and try and get that new business. So I think we've done a few different things. We sort of changed our sort of agenda in regards to how we sort of structure an actual call and actual follow up. We've been looking at different types of lead generation as well, so we're doing a little bit more on the sort of corporate side of things, and it's just expanding that net, really, isn't it? Is that yes, if you're in the past, you think sort of the 18 months or to 3 years ago since we started the business, you very much you were getting leads coming in. There was everyone was still buying. So after COVID as well, so it was referral after referral. But I think things have definitely changed now that you have to proactively be more as you said, social media side of things. I just don't think there's one lead per part you should look at. You just got to look at multiple things and
You've
expand from there.
you've got to fight a lot more, I think, for transactions and deals these days. But as we call it, you've got to shake the tree a bit more, which is call people, see people. If you're quiet at a desk and worried about it, pick up the phone, go and meet someone, organise to go. Say yes to those invites that you were going to say no to.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, people will buy from people, and the only way that's going to happen is if you see them.
It's interesting actually because I spoke to some people who were really struggling, but then, like you say, probably have never been taught to pick up the phone either because they've had it relatively easy for a good few years. If you've been a broker for maybe 7 or 8 years, you probably haven't had to actually market yourself. You probably
Yeah,
haven't
if
had
you're
to.
reliant on leads given to you, then yeah, that would be a problem.
But I think it's even
Yeah,
down to it's not just even finding that lead, isn't it? It's when you get that lead, it's when you've got that client in, it's how you structure it, like how you're offering the advice. Really, are you just doing quick 10-minute phone call, send you some numbers, or are you going to do it in a bit more detail? Are you going to spread it over sort of 2 or 3 meetings? And I think that those things you've just constantly got to be thinking about it just to expand on it. It's funny we were talking about this the other day, and that you said we go back sort of 10 or 15 years ago we were doing a lot more face-to-face appointments. I think anything face-to-face, or at least on a Teams, you're going to be more likely to get a sale than if you're just doing it over the telephone. So I think, yeah, we've almost sort of forgot a lot of our old sort
I
of
could
sales
sell. Yeah,
techniques because things got too easy.
I think we've gone back to basics a bit
Yeah.
more.
yeah. Well, it's interesting about the face-to-face side of things because it's a completely different market now. It's a completely different person you're selling to in regards to. I don't really want to see my broker for
Mm,
an hour, and he's my brother.
yeah.
So it's highly unlikely that, but at the same time, you do get a better conversion rate face-to-face, don't you? So I suppose there is that happy medium of the new school of the way we do stuff because you can get through more leads, but at the same time, as we know, conversion rates happen when we shake hands. So it's
And referrals as well. It's not just converting that part; it's the referrals that come from that as well.
yeah.
People do prefer the personal touch, and they do want to like the person that they're transacting with.
And in regards to referrals, do you have a set way of getting them? Have you concentrated on referrals? I see a lot of people thinking that they're at the bottom of their email saying, "Oh, if you like what we did, please refer your friends," and things like that's a referral system. But is yours a bit more
Do you
thorough?
know what? Well, first ask for them.
Mm.
A lot of people. I had one person actually recently, a huge business, and I won't say who, but he was amazed that asking for referrals works. Just his mind was blown. But ultimately, if you've done a good job for someone, you've got a good relationship with them. Can I help you? Can I help any friends, family, or colleagues?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and the amount of times that works is amazing.
I think it's down to also it's delivering on your promises as well, isn't it? I think we're in this industry now where it's so much easier just to send a quick email rather than sort of pick up the phone or actually have some type of engagement as well. But ultimately, if you actually deliver on what you're going to say you do, that to me has been the key. That's how we've sort of built referrals over the last sort of almost 20 years odd,
yeah.
is by delivering on what we sort of said we're going to do. Like it's if a property's been downvalued or it's been declined, don't leave it 3 days and let them find out through a letter in the post. Just pick the phone up. It might be an awkward conversation, but at least you've had it. You can move on from it then, can't you? You can come up with another solution rather than leave people in the dark. So I think that's been quite key always to sort of referrals, because you're being honest. You're sort of showing who you are rather than sort of hiding behind a laptop.
I 100% agree. I mean, do you know, we've only got one kind of trainee here. The rest of us are quite senior. That sounds old. We're just experienced at our job. But the one thing we're trying to instill in them is picking up the phone. Just pick up the phone, especially for bad news. Nobody wants bad news on a fucking WhatsApp or an email or something like that. You know, it's nothing worse. Like, it shows zero empathy to someone if you're giving them news. I mean, good news is great to get to as well, because you want them to connect to you with the emotion. But you've got to... I was going to use the phrase "man up," then we're not allowed to use that, are we? You've got to just do the hard stuff by picking up the phone now, right? You can't just be, it's too easy, isn't it, to deliver bad news on an email and try and forget about it. But you don't build business that way.
No, not at all.
So, in regards to the referral side of things, I know I've gone over it. I said I'll do 30 minutes, 35 already. So, I know you said about delivering. How do you make sure you have always kept that standard up? Because I think that's what separates you, right? I think from the time I met you, you've got something about you, and obviously you're building a decent business through referral and that kind of thing, which I know you do. You might not think of it as being as impressive as it is, but I see people who really struggle to do what you do. So it is genuinely. But how do you deliver on everything when you can? Because you can't always get every deal through, right?
No, not at all. I think it's touch points really. It's the sense that in our sales process, we build in lots of different touch points. So that would be from the contact, from even sending documents through, all through to an offer, in the sense that, look, if a mortgage goes to offer, if the administrators, for example, have sort of told the mortgage gone to offer, the broker should pick up the phone, or to have some type of contact point as well. So I think for us, contact touch points is all the way through, and that's even after completion as well. So if you think from the day it completes, like we're organised now for a call at between 7 or 10 days, because if someone say just got the keys for their house, the last thing they want to do is have a big long conversation. But if you say leave that sort of 7 days and then sort of have a conversation, it's probably the best time to speak about things. So yeah, I think touch points for us is a very key thing sort of to helping on the referral side of things. And as I said, yeah, just deliver. I know I keep saying, but delivering what you say, because we're in this world where that doesn't happen a lot. It's very easy to make these promises and just nothing
And
comes through.
it's one of the most stressful, hardest, challenging things that anyone will do in their life, and you're coordinating it all for them. So don't underestimate, your part in that, and just obviously make sure that they're always informed. If you've got bad news, make sure you've got a solution to the bad news.
Yeah.
Um, it's not rocket science, but I think managing people's expectations is the most important thing you can do. If you're going to say you're going to do something, do it, and if you can't do it, tell them you can't.
I feel like you might have
It's
stole
you
that.
know
I feel like you might have stole that out of my ebook that I'm sure you've read. The first line is "Do what you say you're going to do." So you're welcome.
If it's more than 3 pages, Az
yeah,
definitely hasn't read
yeah.
it.
There's a colouring bit in the middle to keep them interested.
Is now a good time to talk about when you organised a meeting, Marcus, and just didn't turn up to it?
That is genuinely the only meeting I've ever. Thank you for bringing it up. The only meeting I've ever not turned up to, and it wasn't in the diary, and I feel like it was. It was a penciled in meeting. But you're absolutely right. The one time in 15 years I've not turned up for, I was a no-show at a meeting, and
I'm so flattered.
it haunts me. Exactly. No one else has had that. What a privilege.
Yeah,
Speaking of
cheers.
privilege, actually, you just mentioned it about it being a really amazing part of someone's life, right? And I don't think it's about taking our jobs for granted. It's the same. I consider finding someone a job the same as you finding someone a house or helping with their commercial property is a massive privilege to be part of it. I do think,
Mhm.
and you guys always you work with a smile on your face, right? I love working with you. And it's genuinely I get on with you, but we do have to have that kind of gratitude as well, don't we? That we're in good jobs. Like, I know we'd say it's tough, it's a challenge, but we're very lucky to do what we get to do. And yeah, and being grateful for actually getting to be part of that, getting to be part of that journey with people. Do you feel that?
Yeah,
I was
100%.
gonna,
I think
I was
that
just going to say
for
right
us,
now and
it's
go, no.
no, yeah, that'd be a quick end, wouldn't it? No, 100%. I think, yeah, well, we are lucky in a sense. I remember at 21 falling into this industry, not having a clue really. It was sort of an advert that I'd seen in the paper, and then falling into this industry. And I'm almost 20 years later on still doing the same thing. So, I do feel incredibly fortunate. I've met some great people on there. We've done some sort of good business over the years, and and we're still on this journey. We're sort of in the next part of this journey. So,
It
yeah, no,
is a wonderful industry to be in, and you do. You get a lot for it goes both ways. You're helping some, but the fulfillment that you get and the joy you get for helping someone buy their dream house or save their house or whatever that may be is extremely fulfilling.
Yeah, I love it. That's a nice way to end it. Plus, it's 10 minutes over that longer than I said it would. But I really appreciate your time today. Like, if anyone wants to get hold of it, and genuinely, I know I said I can't use the loveliest bloke in mortgages because I've already used that. But I think loveliest I can use loveliest team in mortgages. But I genuinely wish you the best of
Thank
luck
you,
in everything you do because I think you're
thank
both
you.
great. If anyone wants to get hold of you and have a chat with you about anything we talked about, maybe if it's resonated with anyone, what's the best way to speak to you?
Well, don't speak to me. Don't bother. Don't
Thanks.
bother.
Thanks. I haven't
Uh,
got a phone. I'm not on social media. Go on. If anyone wants to get hold of
well,
you,
the best one would be Adam or David at Helix FP for
and
financialpartners.co.uk.
if
So
you're going to try and put Adam or
at
David
Helix
now, it's
FP.
not going to work.
no.
It's Adam at or
There will
David
be
at.
someone. There will be someone that types that, and those are not the people we want to hear from.
It's been brilliant. Thank you very much, lads. I really appreciate your time.
No, thanks very much
No
for your
worries.
time, Marcus. Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no
Thank you.
problem at all. It's been a genuine pleasure. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope that you find something interesting out of the nonsense we were talking. But I will catch up with you both soon. Like I said, thanks everyone watching and listening on YouTube or Spotify. Thank you, David and Adam. I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Will
See
do.
you later. Take
Cheers.
care. Bye.